Welcome world to Creations with Commander Tom. This is one of my most exciting builds. One of my favorites that I've put in my world since I figured it out. And fortunately and blessedly, thanks to observer blocks, it's a lot easier to build now. It is my ore stacker. Well, what is an ore stacker? Well, it does what it sounds like. It doesn't take too long before you're in the game and you have found Silk Touch. That is a great way to start maximizing your profits by harnessing the ores and then coming up topside to turn them into diamonds with your fortune pick. But the downside is you get into the game and you have stacks upon stacks upon stacks of ores that you want to do this through. So rather than spend half the time stacking and pillaring and making huge blocks, this machine does it for you. Let me give you a little idea of the depth here. We're not talking huge and we're not talking complicated. We're talking a 3-hole deep, which basically is a redstone floor, complete with observer block then monitoring that. The observer blocks then bring the signal directly to the pistons. It's a medium-sized build, I would classify, but it's super handy. Let's go ahead and show you how to build one in your world. Let me give you a little idea of the depth here. We're not talking huge and we're not talking complicated. We're talking a 3-hole deep, which basically is a redstone floor, complete with observer block then monitoring that. The observer blocks then bring the signal directly to the pistons. It's a medium-sized build, I would classify, but it's super handy. Let's go ahead and show you how to build one in your world. Alright, let's just get straight to the build. So, in this chest I have the supplies you need for this machine. Now obviously you are going to go through 2 and over a half stacks of pistons, and you're going to go through just about the same amount in observer blocks. These blocks are wonderful. They cut my hole from the original design was about 5 to 6 spaces deep. This cuts it down to 3. You'll also need just 1 sticky piston, which will pair up with this redstone block to help make our bud circuit. 3.5 stacks of redstone, 6 repeaters, 1 comparator, 1 lowly redstone torch, a couple of slabs primarily to avoid holes to fall into and to keep redstone circuits from actually crossing each other. And then to help with a 1 detector circuit, you will need 1 cauldron and of course a bucket of water to put into it. I strongly encourage wood of some kind for part of the bud circuit. I will explain later. And you will need just a couple of blocks for circuitry. But that's the main components you will need. Let's go ahead and take these up ourselves. And let's get to work in here. We're going to start off by building the redstone circuit on the bottom. This will be what allows us to actually pick it up. Now, from your hole, and let's begin with an aerial shot to give you an idea of the hole that you need to dig. You are looking at needing a 16 by 16 area in order to have room for the machine. The device itself, the hole, will be about a 14 by 13 in dimensions. You're going to need 3 spaces deep for all of this equipment to work. Again, thanks to observer blocks, that's cut the depth in half. And for reference, it's going to be piston block facing up. Then you're looking at your observer block looking down to the redstone floor. Let's go ahead and start with the redstone floor. This here is going to be where you have your smart block detector to push it outward. You'll have a piston to push it this way, and this wall then will be a log that helps carry the bud circuit. Follow along with me and I'll show you the smartest way to put things in. Alright, so this will be where our smart piston detector is built in. We're looking 2 spaces from that. Basically from our hole, we're looking 1, 2, 3 holes diagonally in is where you start your dust. And then you're literally making a redstone grid. Okay. And for reference, I mark this red block as my corner block just to accelerate entry. I want it 3 in, like this, and everything else becomes easy. I'll fast forward through this to save you the pain. Alright, we've got the redstone grid for the observer blocks to monitor. Now we're also going to need to drop down a redstone line here that will be picked up. We're going to drop a couple of repeaters to keep ourselves from making a clock. We're going to want one all the way down on the edge, and then we're going to want one right around 5 or 6. It doesn't matter, just middle of the circuit. 3, 4, 5, 6, drop it there. And then we'll also drop one there, and drop one there to pick up the signal. Now we are going to take a block, doesn't matter what kind of block, but it seems that iron blocks seem to be the default system with that. We'll work with that system, drop one of my observer blocks onto here. Actually, I think I'm going to need to just pillar up for a moment. Okay, so once you're upwards, we're not quite ready for the pistons yet. Let me move those to the side. We are now ready for observer blocks. You're going to put a lot of them down. So just basically start. You can skip these too, and I'll explain why later. Right now, hop on, and just start dropping them on that. And again, you're going to cover this entire grid with observer blocks, so I will fast forward for your pleasure. And that is your observer block floor. Now there are a couple places where we actually do not put that. Because of the smart piston torch system, I have found it's basically save yourself a headache with just a minor decrease in efficiency to not use pistons here. And also this corner. So you are looking at your smart piston corner being clipped, you're looking at your bud corner being clipped, and then you're looking at your high-rise corner being clipped. This corner can be just fine. Give you an aerial view and an aerial view for comparison. Now it's time for the pistons. And you should have your piston floor. Now we're going to be putting in a bud system here shortly, so let's get that set in. You're going to want to have that one block off, and then you'll have your piston set up like that. For reference, that block is not necessary. That was simply a spacer. Okay. Make sure you get them faced so they are facing the floor. If you've ever worked with a auto farm, such as for pumpkins, sugarcane, the old school bud system, that's exactly what we're wiring here. Okay. Put one more piston there. Now, once we get to that system, this is where we put in okay. And since I'm at this gap here, let's go ahead and fill in some holes. I'm using slabs, and I like to put them on the lower section of the first hole, simply so I don't have a hole I fall into, but absolutely guaranteeing that there's no redstone signal cross wiring happening here. And there, and then the last two go into this corner. Same reasoning. I have signals going on here, and I am trying to avoid signal contamination. Okay. Then the next step is to create the logs. I put the logs in here for a specific reason, because you're going to use this for ores. So you're going to have a good pick going on this. And I want to have these faced right. Well, the pick will take care of stone real easy, but it will be stalled by the wood. And when you're coming in here, literally a 13 stone block high, the reason you're building this is to be able to blast through it quickly, not have to be careful. If you just replace this wood, this line here with wood, that gives you an extra margin of safety, because picks aren't going to take this out near as fast as the axe does. So since you're going to be using a pick here, I use wood as a margin of safety to protect your circuitry. Now you do need a couple of blocks here. You can use the ground if you want. There's no problems with that. However, I just use the block to identify you are using circuitry here. A repeater, dust, dust, dust this line, and that's your bud system. Alright, so by this point we've got the bud system set up. So that's working. Let's go ahead and get our smart piston detector going on. So what we need for this is a block there, piston there, torch there, to which we need to have block and block, and then a piece of dust. That right there is going to allow you to have the system that primarily builds your sheets. This will push it out into rows. Your bud detector will push those rows into sheets. One more system and we'll pack those sheets into a cube. Now, this was always the hardest part for me to figure out, is a block detector, not an update detector, but a block detector that would not interfere with the rest of the pistons. I did finally get it. Best system is to set up your reset piston. This is where we bust out the cauldron. I'll set it there, fill it up, okay. Alright, now we're going to do just a little bit of building here, because we need to have Mr. Observer block looking upwards. I have more observer blocks than I planned. My apologies for the excess observer blocks. Okay, Mr. Observer needs to be looking upwards. So, perfect. All right. So from here. All right, so if we look into it, we'll have the signal brought down here, captured by this dust. We'll have the signal brought here, captured by this dust, which then these repeaters spread out to there and spread that way. You do need these repeaters to extend the signal out to shoot it back to that far corner. Alright, once you're up topside, this is what your comparator is for. Throw that there. We dust the circuit, and then we put in a repeater. The repeater is to keep this from becoming a clock. Basically, as your sheets are made and your bud pushes it down here, it will push this cauldron, which this will then pick up that signal, drop it through here. The dust here will then reset the block to here, while the observer takes a signal downwards to the piston floor, pushing it all upwards. That's how you make your stacks. Now, let's give it a test run. Right, now, let's give this thing a live test. Now, if you notice in my hotbar as well as in my inventory, you will see my takeaways from a 1-hour mining session. Obviously, I had a Silk Touch pick, and of course, I was within range of a few beacons. Now, these beacons would, of course, give you haste 2. Of course, if you're going to build this size of contraption, you're likely going to build it next to a beacon with haste anyway. And of course, since we're going for most profit possible, because, you know, you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't want that. This is an efficiency 5, fortune 3 pick with a haste 2 beacon range. Let's see what we can do with this, shall we? I'll go ahead and do the mining. I'll let you know the time at the end. I'll give you the fast forward. And that is the stack from my 1-hour session. And as you can tell, it only went perhaps 2 sheets high. This will obviously take it the full extent of a piston. I always forget if that's 12 or 13, but obviously there's a lot of room here. So if you wanted to finish your session up, if you wanted to do a few more and let it go all the way to the top, you certainly could. Let me go ahead and finish mining this, just out of curiosity to see what that's brought me. Alright, and let's see what the final tally becomes then. Move this over here, but just shy of a stack of diamonds is not bad. 1 and 2 and a little more of lapis, always good to have. I like redstone, so how much did that bring me in? We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, plus a whole lot of coal that I barely count. Just under 9 stacks. So that's all within a minimal time frame. I'll post that on the screen actually after I have a chance to look at the footage. But that is all from a machine to keep handy to make this stuff work. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. The Ore Stacker has always been one of my favorite builds ever since I've been able to pull it off a couple sessions ago, and I just love the observer block for making this thing so... Alright, well, that is the Ore Stacker, and I appreciate you watching this. This has always been one of my favorite builds, especially ever since they came up with the observer block. Now, original versions of this were literally 5 to 6 layers thick. Thanks to the observer block, it's now a lot easier. But that's all I've got for this episode. I do thank you for watching. I always encourage you to like if you want to see more, subscribe if you want to keep score. I'm Commander Tom, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.